It has the strength of a weightlifter.
The C-17 can take off at a maximum of over 500,000 pounds.
It's as nimble as a gymnast.
Flying low to the ground, so you can definitely dance.
In 2 separate missions, C-17 Globemaster IIIs will be pushed to their limits. One ventures into an intense war training operation over unforgiving terrain.
Wheelers on, kick them out.
And the other heads out on a grueling 3-day journey to deliver heavy missile launchers. They are missions that will put each crew member and these $200 million jets to the test. The C-17 Globemaster III is the most versatile cargo plane in the U.S. Air Force fleet. It's a tireless workhorse, engineered to carry over 77,000 kilograms of cargo. That's the equivalent of 8 Mack trucks. There are 221 of these giant flyers in the U.S. Air Force, spread out over 12 bases. A few kilometers from Waikiki Beach near Honolulu, Hawaii, sits Joint Base Pearl Harbor-Hickam. Headquartered here, the Pacific Air Forces oversee and coordinate offensive and defensive air operations for the vast Asia-Pacific region. It's also home to 8 C-17 Globemaster IIIs. For Captain Nick Carr, flying the C-17 is a dream job.
Oh man, I love the aircraft. It's an awesome handling aircraft. It's amazing for such a huge airplane. It really does anything you want.
As a C-17 pilot, Captain Carr has airlifted troops out of Iraq and delivered emergency supplies for victims of the 2011 Japan tsunami. Being a pilot is in his genes.
Since the time I was really young, I've been flying with my grandpa, and he taught me how to fly. And I've always had that love of flying. So to do it for a job really was my dream.
All right, Trek 28, welcome to the brief. How's everyone feeling tonight? Today I'll be the aircraft commander.
Captain Carr and his crew have gathered to go over their upcoming mission. Their orders are to pick up Patriot missile launchers from a remote island in the Pacific and deliver them to California.
So fuel will be 125,000 pounds on board. The chronological order of events will be taken off from here at 11 Zulu, landing in the morning at 16:30, and from 16:30 we'll take that 10.5-hour flight to Kwajalein Island.
Normally, the C-17 needs only 2 pilots and a loadmaster, but the extreme distance of this mission demands a 6-man crew.
We got a 22-hour day today, so not a lot of room for error here. Intel tactics, we've already briefed all that up. CRM topic, would you like to brief it?
Remember the basics: aviate, navigate, communicate, and then safely move the jet, safely move the mission, and everything else just icing on the cake.
The first stop is Vandenberg Air Force Base in California, where the C-17 will drop off a load of radar equipment. Then begins an 8,000-kilometer non-stop flight to Kwajalein Island, part of the Marshall Islands in the northern Pacific. Kwajalein Island is tiny, with only one short runway that's just over 2,000 meters long. The small runway ends at the ocean's edge, a risky landing if they can't manage to stop in time.
You know, there is a risk with it, but it's something that we're trained to do, it's something that we're capable of doing, and it's something that, you know, we actually want to do. That's the great thing about this plane here, is that this plane can take oversized cargo to small runways, you know, places that typical planes can't get into.
In the heavyweight world of cargo planes, the C-17 is a gem. 53 meters from nose to tail. It's almost twice as long as a 737. And has a wingspan that stretches just over 51 meters. 4 fully reversible turbofan engines power this behemoth. Each can produce more than 40,000 pounds of thrust. It's 11 p.m. Time for Captain Carr and his crew to board the C-17 and head to California.
We defend
depend on each other a lot in this aircraft. Everyone has a very different specialty. The load masters and the pilots, to the maintainers. We like to make sure that, you know, the communication lines are open and everyone's comfortable with what's going on, because you never know when someone can have an input that might save a bad situation.
In the cargo hold, the loadmasters crunch numbers in anticipation of the massive payload they'll eventually take on. 3 Patriot missile launchers, each weighing almost 6 metric tons. The C-17 is designed to handle all types of heavy loads, and it's highly adaptable. The floor in the C-17's cargo area is specially designed to be reconfigured in a matter of minutes, thanks to a network of rollers and rails.
And it operates pretty easily, just by pulling it up like that. And then the rollers themselves flip over very easily as well. And this rail here provides lateral and vertical restraint for the cargo. And then the rollers, obviously, for bringing the cargo on it and off the aircraft.
With just minutes to go before takeoff, Captain Carr makes a final visual inspection.
Big picture, we want to make sure the airplane's clean, there are no cracks, all the panels are configured properly, making sure the brakes are in proper condition, and basically just take a big overview of the jet to see that there's nothing to the left, nothing to the right that our wings might hit. We got 169 feet of wingspan.
The flight crew gets the all clear from the control tower. Next stop, California.
Yeah, as maneuverable as she is in the air, when you're on the ground, you feel how big the jet is, and taxiing is definitely something you got to take slow and just kind of roll, and everyone keep their eyes outside, make sure you're being safe on the ground.
Thumbs up on the trucks. Then you're clear on the right. You ready for it? You're clear on the left. Roger. Still clear right. All right, we're good to take off.
Safely off the ground, the crew can now focus on the first leg of the journey.
Right here, I am doing our coast-out checklist. This is something that we typically do. Basically, anytime we're flying over the ocean, so we're going to be flying for about 5 hours, and then we should be arriving in Vandenberg.
In Vandenberg, they'll need to quickly unload and then refuel.
Tower track 28 is gear down.
The tight mission schedule doesn't allow for any delays. This quick turnaround means they have less than an hour to complete the unloading.
So since the pallet weighs so much, we have to put the struts down so that when we're bringing it off the jet doesn't tilt backwards.
During the next leg of the journey, Captain Carr and his team will log almost 8,000 kilometers crossing the Pacific, pushing the C-17's fuel envelope to the max.
This bird is what they call the extended range, so we can go up to approximately 240,000 pounds, and that's limited based on our cargo weight as well. So,
Starting engine number 1.
Before takeoff, the crew uses reverse thrust to back up in order to get the C-17 in position on the runway. The payload door is open, so the loadmaster can see clearly when guiding the pilot backwards.
All right, come on back. Come on back.
There are very few planes this size that can back up on their own power.
Come on back.
The pilots depend on a running commentary provided by the loadmaster to keep the plane on track.
Come on back. A little bit towards 4. Come on back.
We can't see out the back, so we need that loadmaster back there to direct. And he's talking the whole time, and the agreement is that if he stops talking, that we're going to stop immediately because we assume that he may have fallen out. We don't want to run over it.
Come on back.
Every loadmaster will say, come on back.
Come on back. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop. Track 28 Heavy 1300 at 11, clear for takeoff. 2, clear for takeoff. Safety in black. Okay.
The next leg of the mission is off to a good start.
Let it roll. Let it roll. Rotate. Rotate.
Now the crew can settle in for the rest of this marathon mission. that will last for more than 24 hours. 3,600 kilometers away in the skies over Alaska, another C-17 is about to fly into a challenging combat training mission involving over 75 paratroopers. The C-17 crew from Joint Base Pearl Harbor-Hickam is heading out over the Pacific Ocean on their long journey to the Marshall Islands. There, they will pick up a load of Patriot missile launchers and deliver them to California as they're needed at another base. Patriot missile systems are designed to detect and shoot down incoming enemy missiles. Each launcher is about the size of a tractor trailer. Whether it's moving missile launchers or delivering troops to a combat zone, the C-17 Globemaster III was designed for war. And to sharpen their combat skills, many C-17 crews head north. Alaska's rugged terrain provides an environment much like what troops and flight crews would face in war zones like Afghanistan. It's well before sunrise at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson near Anchorage, and this C-17 is being prepped for a training exercise that's anything but routine. It's Arctic War Day.
All right, everyone, welcome. I've got 0602 local in 45 seconds. Welcome to War Day, everyone. Should be a good mission.
War Day pulls together all of the base's available resources to create combat conditions.
For the C-17s, commit at 1811.
And the C-17s are in the center of the action.
Good morning, everyone. Lieutenant Chris Warren. I'm going to be giving you your intel brief today. Bottom line, we have a couple guys in country. Currently, they've gotten some electronic intelligence that we need to get out to prevent a potential terrorist attack that could be imminent. So,
2 C-17s will play a leading role in the operation. Their mission is to drop paratroopers over a remote mountain valley and rescue 2 American operatives carrying vital information. It's a highly coordinated exercise. And just like a real combat situation, nothing is left to chance.
Cover a couple mission objectives first. 8-1 will be myself, Major Phillips. We have Captain Wendler with us as well.
After the briefing, the C-17 crews go over their mission. Major Brian Phillips will be at the controls of one of the C-17s. He's concerned about the wind conditions at the drop zone, called the DZ, where the paratroopers will jump.
We could have winds gusting 20, 25 knots, so we're going to need to get a good report from Major Dillon up there on the DZ so we can make a call on the jumpers.
As part of the mission, each C-17 will drop approximately 75 paratroopers who will secure the valley where the aircraft need to land.
They're going to be gusting up through Annabelle Pass pretty bad. 20, 25 knots, maybe.
With an hour to go before the war scenario begins, all the players get into position. Jet fighters will play the role of the enemy, while others will be protecting the C-17s. Even an AWACS jet is deployed to provide airborne command and help detect enemy aircraft.
We have a real unique training environment here in Alaska. So it allows us to basically practice our wartime mission at home. And it's a phenomenal capability that we have here. It's really awesome.
At the crack of dawn, the paratroopers make their way across the tarmac. Wearing their parachutes and carrying their 36-kilogram kit packs, just walking is a struggle. The paratroopers awkwardly make their way up the back ramp.
Hey, on the grip, don't step on that metal. Slip.
And the morning dew on the steel ramp doesn't help. While the jumpers settle in, Major Phillips and his co-pilot, Captain John Wendler, examine the location coordinates where the paratroopers will be deployed.
This is an overlay of the drop zone, and we use it to make sure our computer is navigating correctly to the drop zone. So it's guided there by GPS, however it's backed up visually by myself and the co-pilot.
The drop zone, known as the DZ, is 354 kilometers north of the base. That's where they've been instructed to rescue the 2 stranded spies.
When I go down upstairs to brief the jump master and the Army, we're going to go over all this information right here so that they know they have a good idea of what the DZ looks like, and they know we know what it looks like as well. Okay. All right. The profile altitude with the doors open is going to be 1,000 feet AGL. Okay. Right now, the winds at altitude are 210 at 20. On the surface, they're 180 at 3, gusting to 10 knots. Gives you a limelight time of 65 seconds over the DZ.
With the C-17 flying at an altitude of just 1,000 feet over the drop zone, the jump masters will have only 65 seconds to get all the paratroopers out. Any longer, and the plane runs out of time and risks flying into the side of a mountain.
Prepared to let you guys, as soon as that limelight starts popping them out. If we wait till the end of the DZ to malfunction, we got serious issues with that terrain out there.
At 0900 hours, F-22 Raptors take flight, and war day begins. Other fighters already in the air act as the enemy.
Airplane clear for takeoff, approach departure.
Ready for their combat mission, Major Phillips and his crew are cleared for takeoff.
Ready.
On the way to the drop zone, Major Phillips maintains an altitude of 1,000 feet.
We fly low level because the C-17 is large. It's not a stealth aircraft at all. So our tactics to avoid radar detection is to fly low to the ground. So when I say low level, I mean it's a route through the mountains at anywhere from 300 to 1,000 feet above the ground.
During the flight, everyone in the cockpit keeps a sharp eye out for enemy fighters. Meanwhile, the paratroopers below wait patiently, and the loadmasters await instruction.
Load. Yeah, what's up? Time. We got 10 minutes.
We constantly need to inform the loadmasters of what's going on. That way they can communicate to the troops in the back to let them know where we are, how long till they jump.
As Major Phillips approaches the drop zone, the jump masters get the paratroopers ready. The loadmasters are in charge of opening and closing the 2 side doors.
P0, doors are clear to open. Second check. Standing by, ADS arm.
The air deflector to the right of the jump platform prevents the jumpers from being pushed against the side of the plane by the airstream.
Step by, ready, light. Ready, lights on.
30 seconds.
Flying at this low altitude makes for a bumpy ride. They're flying at just 1,000 feet and are surrounded by some very unforgiving mountains. It's up to Major Phillips and his flight crew to keep the jet level and get the troopers out fast.
Yeah, go ahead, Loadmaster. Is that a good 30 minutes?
It's Arctic War Day in the sky over Alaska. And the crew of a C-17 Globemaster III is 30 seconds away from launching an urgent maneuver. 75 paratroopers are poised to jump out the side doors as the C-17 rapidly approaches the drop zone in a remote, mountainous area northeast of Anchorage.
There you go.
The paratroopers' mission is to secure a remote airstrip so the C-17 can land and pick them up, along with the 2 stranded spies.
His Army.
It's extremely noisy in the cargo area. The loadmasters and jump masters are forced to communicate using hand signals.
In yard, cross tracks in yards. We're clearance to drop. Actuals are
The biggest thing we're worried about when we have jumpers going out the back of the airplane is a towed parachutist. That's when someone's parachute doesn't leave the deployment bag, so they're just hanging behind the airplane, smacking up against the side. I've only ever heard of it happening once. The Loadmaster was able to get the jumper back inside in less than a minute, and other than a few cuts and bruises, the jumper was fine.
As the C-17 nears the drop zone, Major Phillips concentrates on keeping the aircraft as steady as possible.
Well, it's really critical to be stable at your drop altitude. So when those guys are standing back there out in the door, they're not getting rocked around, and we know they're going to be at the right airspeed required for the airdrop.
Stand by, ready light. A little bit less than that, a little bit less. Flat. Ready lights on. Also 80, calling DZ, winds are 8.
At 1,000 feet and a steady 240 kilometers per hour, it's nearly go time. When the light goes green, there is no turning back.
10 seconds. Next step. Here we go.
Co-pilot Captain Wendler counts them down.
4, 3, 2, 1. Green light. Green light's on. Kick them out.
And anytime we have guys going off the back, I'm always concerned with their safety. It's not just cargo. They're actually live human beings that are going out.
The paratroopers jump from both side doors. They have only 65 seconds before the C-17 has to climb higher to avoid crashing into a mountain. Paratroopers from both C-17s fill the air. Their focus is landing as close to the unpaved runway as possible. Parachute landings aren't always smooth, but luckily, everyone touches down without injury. High over the waters of the Pacific, Captain Nick Carr and his C-17 crew based out of Hawaii are halfway through their marathon flight mission to pick up Patriot missile launchers. Cruising at an altitude of 35,000 feet, the C-17 is heading to Kwajalein Island at 800 kilometers per hour. For the crew, that's not fast enough.
Well, you notice we're a little bit fatter than the conventional airliners, so we'll be cruising along here at Mach 7.4, and normally we get airliners crossing right over the top of us, and we wish we could throw a rope on and hold on to them, but unfortunately not. So, you know, we can do a lot of cool things, but flying fast isn't one of them.
The crew has already passed through several time zones, so to avoid confusion, everyone on the plane synchronizes their watches to Greenwich Mean Time.
So right now I got my watch set to 3:11, and you probably do too, right? So in Greenwich, England is 3:11 right now, and that's what we go off of, so we don't have to do time conversions everywhere we go.
Once they reach Kwajalein Island, the crew will face a daunting challenge. Land the C-17 on a very short runway in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. C-17s were specifically designed to be able to land on short and often unpaved runways. The key to the C-17 short landings is its propulsive lift system, which directs engine exhaust onto the large wing flaps. This alters the pitch of the nose and creates more lift, allowing for a steeper descent and shorter landing. But this design doesn't guarantee a safe or easy landing.
So that was just flying the seat for that one.
In the skies over Alaska, Arctic War Day exercises continue. With the paratroopers safely on the ground, the static lines are pulled in. And the Loadmasters secure the doors as the aircraft climbs higher.
I'm going to say it's 9,500.
They head further into the mountains to hone their cranking and banking skills. These are low-level steep turns within close range of the high peaks.
So what we're going to get into is the Alaska Range, which is part of what Mount McKinley, we call it Denali here locally. Get into that mountain turbulence now. See, we're going over this range here, the Alaska Range.
I'm going to say it's 13,700.
When you're flying around in a terrain like Alaska, where you have, very large peaks and, some really, really deep valleys. You really have to be able to carve and turn that big aircraft to keep from hitting, a big wall of granite.
Charlie is still 919, Charlie.
Altitude.
I'm 4,000 feet. Across the river at 4,000.
For an aircraft that tips the scales at almost 190,000 kilograms, the C-17 is surprisingly nimble.
It's a very impressive aircraft. I mean, flying low to the ground, 350 knots at 300 feet, you can still yank and bank with the best of them. So you can definitely dance.
Is that a good 20 minutes? Yeah. Yes, we look good.
When you're talking mountain low levels, you have to always anticipate the direction you're turning, how far in advance you're going to need to start that turn, and that all depends upon your airspeed and your altitude. And it really comes from training that you know when to start those turns, and that's why the training here is so beneficial.
These low-level training maneuvers are geared to flying under enemy radar in hostile war zones.
So you want to turn inside of all that stuff. Okay. Oh, yeah, I got it. I get 10, 3, 13. You go up to 13,000, we'll be at the top of the world. We'll be in the MOA. Just keep climbing. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, the biggest thing for us is when we're trying to get that low-level training is the ability to be visual and see the ground. So as long as we have the ability to see those big hunks of granite around us, then we feel comfortable getting out and get some of the best training we can.
Unfortunately, we're a little bit further over the mountain than what I figured we would.
The sun has broken through the clouds and is working to their advantage.
We actually prefer that sun, at an angle. Then it'll create a shadow effect. It helps us get a good visual depth perception as a pilot. It's very pilot-friendly when you're flying close to the ground like that.
But the clear weather doesn't mean they can let their guard down.
Proximity.
The alarm gets everyone's attention in the cockpit. The other C-17 is just off their wingtip. It's Arctic War Day over the mountains of Alaska.
I never get tired of seeing Mount McKinley out there. It's beautiful scenery.
Major Phillips and his crew have dropped off 75 paratroopers. An alarm suddenly gets everyone's attention.
Proximity.
The alarm warns the crew that the other C-17 participating in War Day is nearby.
10 miles west, we'll contact Anchorage Center.
They're flying in very close formation for aircraft this size. Luckily, the good visibility allows the pilots to eyeball each other.
If we're in vis, so we can see the two aircraft and we can see the ground, we'll fly a lot closer. Obviously, with a large aircraft like this, our wake turbulences can affect, the guys that are behind us. So at the same time, you've got two large aircraft that are very close to the ground, flying very, very fast.
The second C-17 has dropped back and is now flying right off Major Phillips' tail. The trailing pilot is constantly making adjustments, trying to avoid the turbulence created by the plane in front.
If you're directly behind our aircraft and another aircraft, there are a lot of wingtip vortices coming off. There's a lot of turbulence. So he's getting rocked around a little bit. Some things he can do is he can stack slightly above us, and that'll help get us out of our wash. There's no drafting in the airplanes. You got to stay out of the way.
In combat situations, the C-17's size makes it an easy target, so it's designed with a distinctive defense mechanism. Magnesium flares, radiating heat at over 1,000 degrees Celsius, draw heat-seeking missiles away from the aircraft.
Most countries in the world, have access to that kind of threat for airplanes to fly low and slow to the ground. And so flares is a primary defense mechanism to help protect our airplane from infrared threats.
The distinctive smoke trails left behind by the flares are known as angel wings. 4,800 kilometers southwest, across the Pacific, another C-17 is on a marathon flight. Its mission, to pick up a load of Patriot missile launchers from the remote Marshall Islands.
Big island about 100 miles off our right wing. And I can't see 100 miles anyway.
This six-man crew has been in flight for 19 bone-aching hours. Those not needed in the cockpit try to rest, but the C-17 wasn't built for comfort.
Basically, you try to sleep when you can. There's the old expression, you sleep till you're hungry and then you eat until you're tired. But unfortunately for us, this is part of the game. This is kind of what we do. So really what you have to do is, whether it's resting when you can, kind of sneaking in cat naps, just being honest with each crew member as well.
You feeling? Pretty tired. I think I'm go grab Wes and jump in for the last 45 or so. All right, get off later.
The managing of the fatigue is a huge part of what we have to do. We switch out pilots in the seat, let other guys get rest in the bunk. Try to get a workout in when you can, try to get some food in when you can. Just fess up if you're feeling tired and let your buddies know so that they can step in for you.
Back in Alaska, Major Phillips and his C-17 are heading toward a short, unpaid landing strip to pick up paratroopers and 2 Allied spies. But the training exercise suddenly turns dangerously real.
Hey, Joe Boo.
The flight crew has detected a serious problem with one of the engines.
Yeah. We noticed an abnormal indication on one of our engines. The oil quantity is dropping. Right now, everything's safe. We want to make sure that the airplane stays flying.
The throttle back, right? Throttle's back right now, but as it goes up, the quantity's going down.
Right now, we're in all the emergency checklists, make sure the airplane's still safe to fly, everything's good to go. We train for the worst case scenario if we end up losing an engine for that particular reason.
The crippled number 1 engine is forcing the crew's hand. Flying over the mountains is no time to take chances.
What's going on? Okay, here we go. We got an oil quantity low message, so we may have to shut down the engine as a precaution.
Engine number 1 is losing oil at an alarming rate. Below, the loadmaster looks to see if he can spot the leak. There are no obvious leaks, but the risk is too great, and the mission is scrubbed.
So we're headed home. Roger that.
The tower at home base must now dispatch another cargo plane to get the stranded paratroopers back home. While Major Phillips eases his C-17 back to base.
We will train down to 2 engines, but at that point it is not a fun place to be. 3 engines, it runs really well, it's designed for that redundancy. 2 engines it will, 1 engine it will not. So 2 engines is your bare minimum. Our job is to get the jet back as soon as possible so the experts can take care of it.
Also, C1 Heavy on the north side, report final plus picture only 6. Probably got that traffic off our node on side 1 below.
As he approaches the airport, Major Phillips is immediately cleared to land.
Roger, we're visual landing. 122 is your target.
He brings the jet down gently, doing his best not to damage the crippled engine any further.
Okay, I guess we're going to shut him down here.
It's disappointing, but things like that happen, and we can try again another day.
For Major Phillips and his crew, their mission is over. But in the middle of the Pacific, just a few kilometers from Kwajalein Island, Captain Carr and his crew are about to face the biggest challenge of their long mission. Captain Nick Carr and his crew have been flying for 20 hours. Now, they're closing in on Kwajalein Island in the Marshall Islands for their final approach.
Are we there yet?
Yeah, we've been going at it for about 20 hours now. We alerted in Hawaii at 9 p.m. It's now 5 p.m. the day after. It's long day, so we're looking forward to landing.
With their mission barely half over, the crew focuses on a safe landing on a tiny, remote runway in the middle of the Pacific.
We need 3,500 feet of landing runway. That's our minimum. However, as far as stopping distance, usually we can stop this thing in less than 2,000 feet if we need to.
So as we come in on downwind, I'm thinking about airspeed, altitude, and aircraft configuration.
Coming angling final. You got winds from the right.
We leveled off at 1,500 feet, and we got the runway in sight.
I got you 500 feet down, 1,000 feet. All right, I'm gonna try to keep right there.
We configured the flaps to 1/2. We got cleared to land, and I'm just worried about getting on runway center line, making sure we land within the first 1,500 feet of the runway.
On speed.
So we've got room to stop.
Center line. 300 feet. Bird left, no factor.
On final, we bring the flaps to 3/4, start to slow down, and we got the gear down. We're good to go.
100 feet. 50 feet.
50.
Once the wheels touch down, the powerful brakes take over.
The braking system on this thing is amazing. You'll stop the plane in a very, very short distance.
C-17s can go from more than 320 down to 40 kilometers per hour in seconds.
All right, nice.
There are 12 brake assemblies, one for each wheel, each weighing over 45 kilograms.
All this gray matter right here, it's a composite material that you just don't get at your local auto parts store.
With so much stress placed on the braking system, every assembly gets a thorough visual inspection before and after every flight. Each one has a wear indicator that's easy to spot.
And as the brake wears more and more, this rod will actually start to slide into the tab, and once the tip of the rod and the top of the tab meet and they are flush, then we know it's to be a bad brake and needs to be changed. I can tell by looking at the rod is that the brake has about another month's worth of flying to do.
The crew has been on the ground for only a few minutes, and despite their long journey, there's no time to rest.
1, 2, 3.
The C-17 is working under a firm deadline.
Keep it going.
The Army needs the missile launchers back at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California by end of day tomorrow for redeployment.
As a load, your main responsibility is to do the weight and balance of the cargo on the aircraft, as well as loading it and unloading.
Inside these containers are the components that make up Patriot missile launchers, and each one weighs almost 6,000 kilograms. There are 3 of them coming aboard today, and they need to be positioned according to the plane's CG, or center of gravity.
Hey, let's try to push this forward just a little bit.
Balance of the plane is extremely important so that the plane can take off. So if you have it wrong, a lot can go wrong.
If it was too nose heavy, for example, when the pilot pulls back to rotate the aircraft on takeoff, it may not rotate and it may not take off. Or if it's too tail heavy, you may pull back and it may pull back too far, scrape the tail, or once you get off the ground, you could stall the aircraft because you have too much weight in the back of the aircraft. You'd like to put the heaviest piece of cargo in the center, right on where your center of balance is supposed to be, and then sort of pyramid off, lighter as you go out, so that you know, almost without a shadow of doubt, that right there in the middle is where your CG is.
The pallets must line up perfectly with the locking devices.
Barely. Once the pallet comes in place, we line it up. And these locks go into these slots in the pallet and holds it in place.
This is where you initiate the locks to hold the pallet into the position that you want it. Once they're solid, it indicates the locks are locked into the system.
A loose pallet could spell disaster. The C-17 can pull 2 Gs on a 60-degree bank, so a 6,000 kilogram pallet suddenly doubles in weight.
The worst possible thing probably if something wasn't restrained correctly, and upon landing when they brake pretty hard, if something were to fly forward, especially when I'm sitting up front there, that would be my worst fear.
A long, tiring day comes to a close.
But it's a good way to end a 24-hour day, It's fun.
And the crew heads for a long overdue night's rest. They'll need it before facing one more challenge. Captain Nick Carr and his C-17 flight crew have just flown over 7,700 kilometers to Kwajalein in the Marshall Islands to pick up Patriot missile launchers. With the cargo on board, they head back to California.
Wind 090 at 18.
It's another 10-hour flight.
Check 2-8, clear for takeoff, runway 6. Safety line, clear for takeoff, crew. Rotate. A little heavier today than, yesterday. Lots of rain, gear up, gear up.
They take off in daylight, but it doesn't take long before day turns to night and then day again. They've now crossed the international date line for the second time in one day.
The night flights are brutal. They get long, and it feels like you should be sleeping because it's nighttime and the sun comes up and kind of artificially wakes you up. When I get to that hotel room, I'm probably going to be falling asleep. Thanks, brother. The man. You're welcome, pilot. Champion. No maintenance issues.
A curtain of heavy fog and rain has moved in over the west coast. The landing at Vandenberg Air Force Base is hopefully the final challenge for the tired crew.
It's got to be less than wood. Yeah, fog in California, always expected coming into here, and we're well trained on, applying instrument approaches with the avionics that we have. Do you want weather radar or TAWS going down there?
The alternative is to land at another base, but that's a delay Captain Carr and his crew don't want to consider.
Talked about the arrival alternate. If we go miss, we'll plan on taking over to Riverside where they got clear weather.
They decide to lower the aircraft to just 200 feet.
We'll get down there to about 200 feet height above touchdown. If we can see the approach lighting, we're going to continue to 100 feet. And then if we can't find the runway end lights there, we're going to go around and take it to another field to make it happen. Sounds good. All right.
At 100 feet, the captain will have only a couple of seconds to make his decision. If he can't see the runway lights, then he'll have to pull up fast.
We're about 35 minutes out. Pretty thick over there. But the field is off to our direct left. We'll see. 25 for 24.
C-17 flight crews train for aborted landings all the time. But when you have a full load of cargo and you can't even see the runway, it makes for a very tense cockpit.
That's one below. The runway is wind.
What's runway? Weather watch. Forecasted lightning.
You asked the tower to confirm that the lights are on. I need the lights right now. Got the runway. Got them. And we have the lights. We turn to it.
Even though the C-17 is an extremely sophisticated aircraft, it's up to the pilot to make a final, split-second decision. Land or pull up.
Landing gear is down, pilot. And gears down. Go stand by, final flat. 300. Alright, good lights. Lights. Coming up on. No, you're in the runway.
Finally, they see the tarmac.
Come back to the right. Gotcha. There's 50 feet. Okay.
Gently, the crew eases the huge C-17 to the ground.
That was right at minimum. Yeah, it was.
These guys did a great job in this approach. Nothing better than the Mark 1 eyeball. That's the best thing we got going for us.
With a safe touchdown, the Loadmasters and ground crew can now execute the final task of the mission.
Wait! I felt you leave.
Here we go.
And with that, the door closes on a grueling 3-day mission.
On this mission, we had on-time takeoffs every time, on-time landing. All the cargo got delivered that needed to, and we did the mission safely. So I consider that pretty effective.
Good trip, guys. That was good. Way to finish strong. Pat each other on the back. Brother.
In 2 separate missions, the C-17 Globemaster III faced incredibly tough challenges, both as a heavy cargo mover and as a deployer of troops in combat.
You really do feel like you're flying a much smaller jet. It doesn't seem like it would be as big as it is when you get out on the ground and you look at it.
I get to do some cool stuff, and every time I fly, and I take a second and I look around myself and realize that what I'm doing is pretty awesome.
You know, every once in a while I am reminded of the power of the airplane. You know, I'm reminded of how agile and how nimble the airplane is. Can't believe I'm getting paid to do this.
The C-17 Globemaster III, a one-of-a-kind aircraft in a class all of its own.